found to have shared that information with US Army intelligence. And so they had the data of where all the Muslims were, the concentration of those Muslims, and the geographical location, because you have to give that information to the app. And they sold that to a third party who then made that available to the US Army. And allegedly, the US Army was using that data for things like, if I could have a superpower to enhance my work in privacy, it would definitely be time travel. I would create a world where every man, every woman, and every child has more freedom over their personal information. And so therefore I set off with this vision, and the first thing I was like, I need to attract a tribe of like-minded people who want to go on this journey with me. And that's why I started the Privacy Academy. And that's exactly why we have a community.
Hey everyone, welcome to the VPN Ranks podcast. We have got a privacy powerhouse joining us today, Jamal Ahmed. He's the genius behind Kazient Privacy Experts, the voice of the top-rated Privacy Pros podcast, and the guy who makes the data privacy so cool. Jamal is all about helping people level up their privacy game. So Jamal, it's an honor to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you for such a kind introduction, and it's my pleasure to be here.
My first question for you is, what was the turning point in your career that led you to become a global privacy expert and AI expert?
I think the turning point in my career, the pivot to data privacy was, first of all, I hated waking up in the morning. I hated waking up in the morning, going to do a dead-end job, doing the same thing every day, without any fun, without any fulfillment, without any challenge, and without seeing why I had to spend so much time and money investing in my education and my personal development if I'm doing something a robot could do, or if I'm doing something anybody from high school could come and do, right? Why have I spent so much money, time in my education just to be doing the same thing over and over again? So I was in compliance in financial services, and it's all just doing the same thing over and over again. You're repeating a process. And I was like, life is too short to spend most of my life doing this with people I don't enjoy in toxic work environments. And so I wanted something more. And so I wanted to pivot to a meaningful role, something that is rewarding, something that actually has a positive contribution to society. And the best thing I could find was data privacy. And the GDPR was coming in place at the time. That's the General Data Protection Regulation, which is a really big piece of law that came into Europe that really changed the way companies and organizations have to think about what we do with people's personal information. And so I was like, I want to get into data privacy because I can see myself having a massive impact. I can see that the work is fulfilling, it's very challenging. And I also know from my skills that I have that I'm actually really good at it. I really bring that pragmatic solution rather than just focusing on the theoretical legalese, and say, how can we help the business to use privacy as an enabler? And so I wanted to get into a more rewarding, more fulfilling, more challenging career where there was more work-life balance. I could work from home. I had more money to enjoy going on holiday, spend more on my family, bring up my children nicely, without having to always have money as a constant source of stress and live paycheck to paycheck. And so trying to transition into data privacy, because I'm not a qualified lawyer, was actually becoming quite challenging. And in the UK at the time, the industry was dominated by middle-class, middle-aged white lawyers who all happened to be men. And so going in as this Asian, Muslim, brown guy without a legal qualification was a little bit daunting. And at some points I was like, can I even do this? And then I got rejected for 73 different roles and interviews, right? And after that, I realized, hang on a minute, I need to stand out more than anyone else in the market. I need to compete with people who have years of experience. I need to compete against people who have legal backgrounds. I need to compete against people who have connections, whose parents are middle class, who know the people in the city. That means I can't be mediocre. I can't just be somebody who has some certifications, who has some knowledge. I have to be world class. I have to show them that they can't afford not to have me on the team. And when they see the value that I bring to the table, then it doesn't matter what my religion is. It doesn't matter what the color of my skin is. It doesn't matter if I have a funny accent, because they see the value that I bring to the table. And it was that mindset shift that pivoted me to say, I have to be the best. And the only thing I can do is compare myself to who I am yesterday. I can't look in the market and compare myself to people who are lawyers who've been doing this for 20, 30 years. It's just going to put me in a bad place. I have to look in the mirror every single day and what can I do today to be better than I was yesterday? I know what I'm aiming for, and I just have to keep striving and working towards that. And what I found was, where I can add the most value is taking really complicated things and breaking them down, making them simple in a way that anyone can understand. And that's exactly the approach I took, and the rest is history.
That is such an inspiring story. That brings me to the next question. What motivated you to focus on empowering others in the field of privacy? And how do you measure the impact of your work?
Yeah, great questions. So what motivated me to empower other people? So I got married in 2012, right? And then I was married for some time, and we were trying for a child. And 5 years later, still nothing. So we eventually ended up trying to get some fertility treatment. And right before that appointment came, we had good news. Allah had blessed us with a pregnancy. And so everything shifted for me, like my whole perspective, what was important, what wasn't important. I was like, I'm about to be a father. I need to focus on my income. And as I mentioned to you, I was in financial services at the time. And part of my role included calculating interest. And now I'm a Muslim, and that interest, we call it riba, right? And that is something that we're not supposed to be dealing with. That's not something that we're supposed to be writing down. And I remember I went to this one sermon on a Friday at the mosque, and the guy said, the one who writes down interest and the one who deals with interest is the same. And I was like, oh my God. I'm calculating interest and I'm writing down on letters and stuff. I don't want to be held accountable for this. And whatever mistakes I've made, but I need a halal income for my child. And I don't want to be here again in 5 years, 10 years down the line where I have to think about changing my career because it's not fulfilling, because I hate coming to work, because Mondays I have to fight with the duvet to get out of bed because I don't want to go and do another week. And so I wanted to do something that was fulfilling, meaningful, and challenging. And I wanted to do something that was halal. So I looked around and I was like, okay, what can I do? And you know, what was really fascinating was I discovered that the first proper rules that we have in any civilized society about privacy was in Islam. In fact, it was in Surah Light. And that was the first time we was told about privacy and who we should be around and how we should guard other people's privacy. And the more I looked into privacy, the more fascinated I became from how much Islam valued privacy before any other civilization came in. And even if now, if you go to Turkey, for example, we had the Ottoman Empire, you can see how they respected privacy. And even in our etiquette, like for example, Muslims, when you knock on somebody's door, you're meant to stand to the side. So when they open the door, you don't look inside their house or inside their room. They had in the Ottoman Empire, they had two door knockers, a big one for men, a small one for women, to kind of make sure that everyone has a privacy. And even the Sahabas, that's the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, they was told not to enter their houses from the back in case they disturb the privacy of their wives and the people that live in their house. So that's how enshrined privacy is in my faith, in the things that we hold dear to us. And so naturally it was like, yeah, this is good work. This isn't just something to make an income, but it's actually promoting the values, promoting the ideals, and it's going to have a massive impact on society. And so I was like, okay, data privacy is definitely the route I want to go down. And so I got into it, and it changed my life. Like, it literally changed my life. From being just this guy in the office who was just doing the bare minimum and getting the work done, I became somebody who was valuable, somebody who was respected, somebody who was invited to meetings, somebody who people wanted to speak to because of the value the work was having on the business. My income went up, I was able to do nicer things, and I was like, this is amazing. And sometimes, you know, people find that and they just keep it to themselves. So I was like, no, this is great. I have to tell everyone about it. Like, hey, this is what you should do. I've done it. Okay, it took me 73 goals to get there, but I've done it and I'm really loving it, and the work is fun, it's enjoyable, we're making a meaningful difference, you get treated with respect. Who wouldn't want that? And you know, if something's good for you, you should want that for your neighbors too, right? Yeah. And so I went to my friends, I went to my family, and I started mentoring them and helping them to break into it. And I realized that this is too valuable to keep to myself, and I want to help more people elevate their careers. I want to help more people to break into this, especially from disadvantaged backgrounds, from minority backgrounds, and especially more females. We need representation here because privacy is very cultural. And the more perspectives you have, the better you can serve your customers, the better you can serve your patients, the more you understand the different cultural aspects of privacy. And so it enriches everything. So I was like, I want to help more people. Now, that pregnancy that I told you about, unfortunately, alhamdulillah, God had other plans, and Allah took the baby away. We had a baby that was born far too early. Her name was Aya. She survived for 20 minutes. And alhamdulillah, right? God took her away. And so that was like, you know what? That was tough. But then the year after, we got blessed with another pregnancy. This time it was twins. And so we had Isaac and we had Noah. And again, we had challenges through the pregnancy. They was born. This time, we lost them again. Noah survived for 2 weeks and Isaac survived for 8 days. And after I buried my third child, it was like game over. Like I was in a very bad place. Everything was dark. I had no motivation to do anything. I pretended to be okay because, you know, you're the man, you have to be strong. That's what everyone says. But I was in a very dark and bad place and I was stuck. I didn't know if it was night or day. We wasn't eating, like takeaways. I don't know what day it was. Whenever my phone went off to go to a meeting, I'd do it, but I wasn't the same person and I was definitely not in the same place. It was only by helping people that I got out of that. And what we did is, me and my wife, we raised funds through, like she would bake cupcakes and I would do other things. And we raised funds to help people in Uganda. So we built a mosque, we built water wells, supported the community there. And that giving back, that helping people felt really good. And that helped us to come out of that. And I realized, you know what, this is really fulfilling. I want to help more people. So what can I do? And I was like, I don't want to work in the charity sector. I enjoy what I'm doing and I think I can make a bigger impact doing what I'm doing here. So how can I find a way of giving back and helping people through what I'm doing in the privacy sector? And I realized there's so many people that want to break in. There's so many people that are challenged with self-imposter syndrome. They don't understand the complexity. They feel overwhelmed. I was like, I can help people become world-class privacy professionals. And I can help them not only to change their lives, but impact their families, impact their communities and inspire more people. And essentially I decided as a legacy to my children, in their honor, I would create a world where every man, every woman and every child has more freedom over their personal information. And so therefore I set off with this vision, and the first thing I was like, I need to attract a tribe of like-minded people who want to go on this journey with me. And that's why I started the Privacy Pros Academy. And that's exactly why we have a community at the Privacy Pros Academy, is when someone comes and joins the academy, they become part of the community for the rest of their careers, right? And we're all working together to do whatever we can to get businesses and organizations to adopt honest privacy practices so that together we can have a positive impact on the world. And one day there will be a world that's transformed because of what we've started over here. And that's why we have the podcast that goes out to 137 countries. That's why I wrote the best-selling easy peasy guide to the GDPR to make it accessible to everyone. And that's why we have these world-class training programs to help people go from zero to world-class privacy expert in a very short space of time.
You often talk about helping professionals overcome imposter syndrome, right? So can you share a moment in your own journey where you felt like an imposter and how you conquered that feeling?
Yeah, so a moment, there's too many moments to talk about. Let me share another story with you. So, you know, when I was first looking to go into privacy, there's this company called OneTrust, you've probably heard of. They help companies with privacy tech solutions, right? And they are really good at marketing. And they had all of these amazing events where they would bring in speakers and show how their software was helping people. And so one of these early conferences that I went to, so before you go into conference, they give you breakfast and stuff and then you go in, right? So I went to one of these events and I've had breakfast, and as I'm going through into the place where the conference speakers are, there was a white, middle-class, middle-aged lawyer, takes off his coat and gives me the coat. So I was like, what would you like me to do with your coat? He says, can you put it in the cloakroom? I said, yeah, the cloakroom over there. Why can't you do it? And he says, and you're part of the catering stuff. So clearly he thought I didn't belong there. And I was like, wow. that was kind of the start of me understanding that, hey, maybe I don't belong here. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe I shouldn't be here. But in that moment, I made a decision. I made a decision that one day I'm going to come back to this room and he's going to see me over there. And so that's what's driven me now. The honest truth is, do I feel like an imposter every single day, every single time, all of the time? But when it's the imposter syndrome can either be something that is paralyzing or it can be something that is empowering. Now, I know that sounds a bit odd, imposter syndrome. No, it's not empowering, Jamal, but let me explain to you why. Everything comes down to your mindset and the way you perceive something. So when I feel like an imposter, I choose to remind myself the only reason I'm feeling like this is because I care so much about what I do that I don't want to get it wrong and I want to make sure I get it right. So what can I do to make sure that I find the clarity and the confidence within me to do my best? And as long as I know that I'm giving it my best shot and I'm realizing the only reason I'm feeling like this is because I care, then that's fine. So for example, I wrote this book, The Easy Peasy Guide to the GDPR, right? If I didn't have this mindset, my imposter syndrome would have stopped me from publishing it. Because everybody told me, hey, you can't publish a book. You're not an author. You're not even a lawyer. How are you going to write a legal text when you're not even an author? You're not even a lawyer, right? So I was like, you know what? You guys have a point. But then I was like, hang on a minute. Is this book going to help people? Yes. Has it already helped people before I published it? Yes. 4,000 people on LinkedIn downloaded it, gave me amazing feedback. So why would I not try and help people? It's not about me. It's about what I can do for other people.
Absolutely.
And imposter syndrome really comes when we focus on ourselves rather than the value that we can provide. It's, what are people going to say about me? What if I do something wrong? What if I look stupid? That's the wrong focus and that's the wrong question. So whenever you feel that imposter syndrome, first I would say, remember that it's because you care, you only feel like this. If you didn't care, you wouldn't have the imposter syndrome, right? So that's the most important thing, is only because you care. That says something about your level of professionalism, your dedication. So you should see that as a positive. And then secondly, change the focus in your mind from yourself to the people that you're trying to serve. And imposter syndrome, what is that even? Right? You completely forget all about it because you've changed your focus. You're no longer focusing on yourself. And as long as we're focusing on the value that we bring and the people that we're trying to bring that value for and serving them, it's never going to be a challenge. Now, it sounds easy. It's more difficult to put into place, but that's where the mindset comes in, right? You have to focus on your mindset and you have to make sure that you train yourself and you have to practice this stuff every single day. And that's why when we come and join the Privacy Pros Academy, one of the biggest things I focus on is all about your mindset and transforming your mindset. Because if you look back and think about it, somebody with my disadvantaged background, son of an immigrant, first person in my family to go to university, no network, language challenge, all of those things, you would never, if you was a betting person, you would never bet that I would be the person that's going to countries around the world representing the UK as the international data protection conferences, giving keynote speeches. I would not be the person from the data protection industry that the BBC would dub as the king of data protection. I would not be the person to win all of these awards from all of these amazing places and people and be doing the things I'm doing and be even have the opportunity to sit at the tables that I'm sitting at. And so earlier this year, I was given the keys to the City of London. So I was awarded with the freedom of the city. So I'm now a free man of the City of London. And when you go and look through that ceremony, you look at other people that have been awarded that, you see people like presidents from the US, the royal family, Princess Diana, authors like J.K. Rowling, Olympian athletes and all of these things. And then there's little old brown Jamal here, also signing that book, getting invitation to become part of the Guild of Freemen of the City of London. And it's amazing. Now, first of all, I have to thank God for all of these. All praise is due to him. But God says, do your best and he will take care of the rest. And that's what we need to remember. And the other thing is, in Islam, one of our values and one thing we're encouraged to do is do everything with excellence, right? Ihsan. And so it says, Allah loves those who do things with excellence, or those who strive for excellence. And so if you lean into your faith and you bring all of the things that make you who you are and that are important to you into other areas of your life, you can see how they can complement each other. Here in the UK, one of the challenges people think is you can't have a corporate role in the city and be a practicing Muslim and be really open about that. I choose to wear my faith very openly. And the people that don't like that, that's fine. I'm not here to serve everyone. I can't make everyone happy. But the people who are okay with me being who I am, being a man of principle, being a man who's fair, being a man who's trying to do the righteous thing, they're going to gravitate towards me. And that's all I care about, is the 20% of the people that actually value those things, that want my help, that I can support, and together we're going to have a massive impact on the world.
Absolutely. You and your academy has made a significant global impact. Can you share a story about a project or a client that profoundly changed your perspective on privacy?
Can I share? Here's a story. Like, it's not a consultancy story, but let me tell you a story. So a few years ago, there was reports of really terrible things that happen with people's privacy. So have you heard of this app called Muslim Pro?
No.
Okay, so it's the most downloaded app in the world for Muslims. And Muslim Pro is basically an app that reminds you when it's time to pray. So the adhan goes off 5 times a day, and Muslims download it and it's on your device. Now, Muslim Pro was found to have shared that information with US Army intelligence. And so they had the data of where all the Muslims were, the concentration of those Muslims, and the geographical location, because you have to give that information to the app. And they sold that to a third party who then made that available to the US Army. And allegedly, the US Army was using that data for things like drone strikes in certain parts of the world. And so that is a profound reminder of how, when we're designing and developing apps, and we're not even thinking about the ways it could be used, is to say, how are we going to protect our users from becoming victims, and how are we going to make sure that they're not subject to arbitrary surveillance, even though it's not one of the intended purposes of the app? How do we stop that from happening later down the line? And so when you hear stories like that, you realize, you know what, we need to stop things like this from happening, and I can be part of the solution, and I can empower other people to be part of the solution. And this is really meaningful work. We need to stop people from being abused. We need to stop people from being violated. We need to stop people from being killed, right? Another example I can share with you is, have you come across Airbnb?
Yes.
Yeah, so Airbnb, you go, you book a place you want to stay. Now, Airbnb have been doing a great job for some time, but back in the days, their app would require you to upload a profile picture, right? And then that profile picture was shared with people who own the properties, like the landlords or the property owners. And you could have a look at the person and say yes or no. And there was this guy who was a colored person. He tried to book a room. He tried to book 2 rooms actually at some properties, and he was rejected. So then he changed his picture to the picture of a white man, and he was accepted. So here we can see, even just when it comes to going and having a holiday and things like that, you could be subject to discrimination. It's because your privacy isn't protected. So how do we make sure that we're building solutions, we're building services where we are not unintentionally exposing people to be discriminated against because of the color of their skin? And so when you look at stories like this, and when you work on things like this, it reminds you of how impactful, how powerful, and how required the work that we do is, especially in this day and age.
Surely, absolutely. So, hosting the #1 Privacy Pros podcast, what has been your most eye-opening or controversial episode, and why?
That's a very good question as well. I don't know about controversial moment, but what's been really eye-opening is, regardless of who I'm speaking to and what part of the world and how experienced they are, at the end of the day, everyone's just an individual trying to do their best. What's really stood out for me from the people who are at the top is they all have very similar mindsets and approaches, and they all value the soft skills over the technical skills in their team and when they're looking to hire a recruit. And so things like project management skills, communication skills, qualities like being curious and asking questions, regardless of whether I'm speaking to a commissioner, someone from the European Data Protection Board, the CEO of a company, the chief privacy officer, somebody in tech, somebody in privacy, somebody who specializes in law. There's some common themes that come through. And they're all focused on making improvements, being the best version of themselves, and showing up They're all focused on continuously learning, continuously investing in yourself, and they want people who are going to come into their teams and raise the bar. They don't want people who are technically brilliant but is just going to maintain the average of the team, or that's just going to stay there. They're looking for people who are ambitious, who are driven, who really want to make a difference, who are passionate. And that's what's really stood out, is there is a set of qualities and skills that we should all aspire to develop or further develop. And if we do that, then you're always going to be the right fit for an organization, and you find those are the same qualities that the most successful people in the industry have. And if those are the qualities and the traits that the most successful people in the industry have, those are the ones that we all want to embody, so we can achieve and maybe even outreach those goals too.
Speaking of challenges and trends in privacy, AI is often seen as a double-edged sword in privacy discussions. So, how do you see the future of AI evolving in a way that respects and enhances privacy rather than just compromising it?
Yeah, really good question. So I think it was last year or the year before, I actually did a keynote conference in Lithuania about how do we balance AI and privacy. And so we've got lots of different tools that will help us to understand the risks of using artificial intelligence and machine learning, and also how we can mitigate those risks and what are the things that we need to put in place. Now, of course, in the EU, earlier this month, we have the EU AI Act that's coming. So that's going to give some guidance, that's going to have some parameters of what we can do, what we can't do, and the different things that we need to consider. But then we already have all of these things. We have the principles from privacy. We have all of the NIST frameworks. We have other legislation and other guidance in other parts of the world. So there's so many options out there right now that we can actually look to see what we can borrow or what we can implement to help us make informed decisions. But fundamentally, what we need to think about is, what is the personal information that we're collecting and running through this AI, or that's going to be impacted by this? What kind of an impact is that going to have on an individual, both now and later down the line? How can we make sure we understand what could possibly go wrong and mitigate against those things? And what are some of the things that we haven't even thought about that we should actually try and think ahead and see could happen as a result of what we're doing now without thinking about it? And it's just having a thoughtful, holistic approach, looking at the bigger picture and saying, hey, this is what's going on, this is the potential detriment that could be here, and whether we either do it this way to mitigate against those risks, or we don't do it at all. And one of the biggest questions you should be asking is, just because we can, should we?
Absolutely. Speaking of more challenges, as you are a data privacy expert, what are some under the radar privacy trends or challenges that you believe? What are some under the radar trends or challenges that you believe will gain more attention in the next coming years?
On a very high level, more and more people will be caring about their privacy. 5 years ago, not many people cared about their privacy. Today, we can see that companies like Apple, companies like Amazon, they're using it as a marketing thing, because they understand that people are caring more and more about the privacy. As we have this more digitized, more plugged in society where we have all of these global transactions now, people are becoming more and more concerned about what people know about them, what information they share, and how they're getting targeted and profiled. So I think the public is definitely going to shift toward becoming more privacy aware. And I think the biggest shift is going to come in countries that don't currently have privacy laws right now, like Pakistan, like Bangladesh, and India. You can see they're just literally bringing something in. We can see 50% of the globe is scheduled to have some kind of privacy law by 2027. We're in the second half of 2024 right now. So there's going to be lots of opportunities for individuals to really step up and make a difference. There's going to be lots of challenges for businesses to really understand how to be compliant with the regulations, and they're going to need talented people to help navigate them through those challenges. So people are going to care more about it. Companies will have no choice but to care more about it, and we're going to see more regulations coming in. And in a few years from now, privacy won't be a thing that people talk about. It will be what they expect as a bare minimum, and then we build on from that. Now, some of the challenges that we have with less developed countries, for example, is this idea of privacy is only for wealthy people. And so I remember a few years ago, there was a delegation from the government of Bangladesh wanting to increase trade in the UK. And I was invited to the House of Commons to be part of that discussion. And one of the things I kept bringing up is, look, here in the, and we was part of Europe at the time. So I said, look, here in the UK and Europe, the law says we can't do business with companies that can't offer guarantees that they will protect this personal data. Now, Bangladesh doesn't have a regulation that requires you to do that. And you haven't been able to prove that you have anything in place, whether industry specific or company specific, to solve that. Now we're here at a governmental level, the government needs to step up and do something about this. And eventually one CEO stood up and says, Jamal, this privacy, why do you keep talking about this privacy? It doesn't make any sense, because, you know, in my village where I come from, any teenager would give up his privacy, his dad's privacy, his grandfather's privacy, just to download one free song. And so I was like, you know what? That, I mean, it sounds quite funny, but it's actually quite true, right? It's like they'll do anything just to get anything for free. And oftentimes we will say we have nothing to hide, or here, take all this, because we don't understand the impact that it can have. And especially when you're in a place where poverty is rife, it's not the most important thing to you. Survival is more important. Other basic needs are more important than privacy. But it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that. It doesn't matter if you're wealthy or poor. Privacy should be seen as a basic human right, just the way we see all other basic human rights. And so I think the most important thing is that cultural shift. The other interesting thing is recently, the Middle East have been focusing more and more on data privacy regulation. In fact, in September 14th, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, they will be bringing into force the PDPL over there. And so I've been working with clients around the Middle East. And one of the conversations I remember having with them was they were saying, look, we've only just bring in a privacy law because we didn't feel like we need it. Like our constitution, our laws go back to what we call Sharia. And in Sharia laws, privacy is enshrined as basic human rights. It's just the way we do things. It's part of our life. We don't need a law to tell us what to do. The only reason we're having to bring these laws in now is because we want to be part of the OECD, and there seems to be a global trend towards it. So we're going on with it. But otherwise, it's part of our culture. It's part of what we do. And also, at the same time, when it comes to our digital privacy, we are more likely to spend more money on physical privacy than digital privacy, because we believe our government is spying on us anyway, right? So anything they do digitally, they feel like that's already being monitored, and so they're more likely to take an interest in physical privacy and security because they feel they have more control over that than the digital stuff. And these are some of the cultural nuances and the interesting things that you would never understand unless you go and visit different parts of the world, have conversations, and really understand the culture by living, working, and spending time with people from those backgrounds and from those places. So I find it really, really fascinating how your approach to privacy, even if you're working for one multinational company, how things will be perceived differently and how you have to adapt your solutions, your training, your policies, your processes for different offices and different jurisdictions to cater to everyone, to make sure that everyone is doing what they need to do to make sure that we're being responsible with the information that's been trusted to us. And the other thing that's important to say is, when we think about privacy, the way I like to think about it is, coming back to my faith, is this concept of amana. Amana is trust, right? So if someone trusts me with their money, then I have to uphold that trust. I have to keep it safe. I have to keep it secure. I should only do what they've asked me to do with it and nothing more. Absolutely. It's the same with data. If someone trusts me with their data, there's an amana there. I should only do what they've asked me to do with it and nothing more. And I should also keep that safe, keep that private, and not share their data with other people without their permission.
You have a very strong vision for a world where everyone enjoys freedom over their personal information. So how do you actively promote diversity and inclusion within the privacy field?
Great question. So that's where our community comes in. That's where me spending time and speaking to you today comes in. So Pakistan isn't an area where there's data privacy laws. I've had a few mentees from Pakistan actually, and one of them worked for the British American Tobacco Company and a few others. But it's actively spending time talking to platforms like yourself in areas where there is no benefit to me whatsoever. Like, I'm not looking for clients there. I'm not looking to pick up anything there, but I actually want to help you to get privacy out there more. And I want people to know that there's a career opportunities coming up, and it could actually be the thing that changes not just their career, but their life. And if people see them change their lives, then people will also see that other people can be inspired by that too. And that's exactly what we want to do. So one of the things I really focus on is helping people from disadvantaged backgrounds, disadvantaged countries, or less developed countries, and offering them scholarships and helping them to really understand that nothing is going to get in the way, and our community is here to support that. So you'll find me in the places promoting diversity, promoting equity, promoting inclusion. You'll find me sitting with Latinas and saying, how can we get more Latinas into STEM? You'll find me in the places that are advocating for those STEM roles and bringing more women into those technical environments.
Final question of this podcast. So if you could have one superpower to enhance your work in privacy, what would it be, and how would you use it?
If I could have what, sorry?
As a one superpower to enhance your work in privacy. So what would it be, and how would you use it?
If I could have a superpower to enhance my work in privacy, it would definitely be time travel, right? Because then I could go back in time and make the necessary changes, stop the things that could be happening. So I would definitely would say time travel. That would definitely be the number one superpower that I would love to have. However, we don't have that. So the superpower that I do have is making things easy peasy, right? That is a superpower. Being able to take complicated things, being able to explain complicated instructions in a simple, straightforward way that people have clarity, they're confident that they understood it and they know what they need to do. I think that is my superpower. And every day I focus on enhancing and sharpening that superpower, because the more easy we make things for people, the more easy we make things for our clients, the more easy we make things for users to understand their privacy settings and how to make the most of those, the more of an impact we can create.
So that's it from us, Jamal, and thank you so much for your time and sharing the wonderful stories, inspiring advices, of course, and thank you so much.
You're most welcome, and thank you for such great questions and for being such a wonderful host.
Thank you so much.